Hello, I'm Tracy, a relocation coach helping people navigate the emotional layer of relocation. When I was 29 years old, I was going through major life transitions. Everything in my life was falling apart. At that time, I thought moving abroad could give me a new start, so I decided to move from Hong Kong to Vancouver. But after arriving in Vancouver, I realized that not only didn't I gain anything new immediately, I lost even more. The loss of belonging, the loss of identity, the loss of social network. And that is when I realized to navigate relocation is to navigate loss. Change brings loss, loss brings grief. And for a long time, I didn't even know I was feeling this grief. I thought it was just homesickness or sadness until one day I saw this term called the ambiguous grief. So this is about the invisible losses we experience after a relocation. It's the loss of belonging, the loss of identity, the loss of culture makers such as food, language, traditions. And even though nothing actually died, you experience the same profound sense of loss and sadness. And so often we don't even talk about it because when it comes to moving abroad, everyone just talks about the new excitement, new possibilities, new adventure, but very few people talk about the hidden grief that comes with it. But grief is one of the most powerful teachers we can ever have. It is also through navigating those grief and loss that I began to have the deepest spiritual awakening and inner transformation. Moving abroad really teaches us to release, to let go, to shed those old identities and cultural conditioning that no longer serve us so that you can become the person you're meant to be. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to navigate grief after a relocation and use it as a doorway to spiritual growth and emotional healing. So the ambiguous grief is an emotion almost everyone experiences after moving abroad, and it can arise at any point after your relocation. Some people experience it immediately after a move. They feel this loss of connection, the loneliness, and sometimes regret. They begin to wonder if this is really the right decision. Is this really worth it? And when our mind, our body is hijacked by this grief, it's almost impossible for us to see the big picture. You only focus on the negatives. And then there are also people who experience ambiguous grief long after moving abroad. Maybe you thought you already succeeded in your new environment, but at some point something just stirs it up again. And these are some common moments where people experience ambiguous grief after relocation. The first one is important life milestones. Maybe it's a wedding, job promotion, buying your first home, having your first child. You wish you could celebrate those important moments with your family, friends, but they cannot be there for you because of the physical distance. And sometimes it's the opposite. Maybe it's your loved ones who are celebrating their important life milestones, but you couldn't be there for them. And the second one is when you return to your home country, because a lot of people assume returning home will bring you a sense of comfort, ease, and belonging. But the reality is often not the case, because after moving abroad, you will change and evolve, but not everyone is gonna change with you. When you return home, you feel like a stranger at a familiar place. You realize there are some moments and relationships that cannot be recreated. And this is when a lot of people say, I would rather be a stranger at a strange place than being a stranger at a familiar place. And the third one is when you notice the shifts in your relationships. Maybe when you first move abroad, you are doing your best to keep in touch with your friends back home. You try to maintain contact with them through video calls and emails, but at some point, you just slowly outgrown those old relationships. Because when you're in this new environment, you're being exposed to new ideas, new ways of being, but not everyone is going to grow with you. So over time, you just realize that some old relationships cannot survive the distance. And then the fourth one is when you imagine a life you could have. So often grief is not just about leaving behind your old life, family, friends. Sometimes it's also tied to a dream that never come true is tied to an expectation. Maybe part of you always wonder what your life could have been if you hadn't moved abroad, and what if you have chosen a different path. And then the last one is when you're navigating that in-between space. When you're moving abroad, all of the things that used to anchor you, such as your job title, social identity, suddenly disappear. It can make you feel like you lost your confidence, you lost your direction. You begin to question who you truly are. And so what you're grieving for is that old version of you that once felt confident and safe. And so often when you're navigating this in-between space, you will also experience loneliness, the feeling of loss, confusion. And before you truly find yourself, it might be harder for you to find other people who really see you and understand you. And so I left home at 16 years old and lived in 6 cities around the world. And the biggest lesson I've learned throughout this journey is not about how to navigate culture shock, how to find a job or an apartment. It is learning how to say goodbye. Because throughout this journey, I've noticed that we will experience 3 types of goodbyes. The first one is the anticipatory goodbye. This is the sadness you begin to feel when you are saying goodbye to your loved ones. Maybe you are packing your boxes, having last dinner with your family and friends. Maybe it's saying goodbye to them at the airport before you start your new chapter. And the second one is the sudden goodbyes. After moving abroad, maybe one day when you wake up, you suddenly heard the news about the death of the loved one back home. Or maybe one day when you wake up, you lost your job, you are being fired, and then your visa is also tied to your job, and all of a sudden you have no choice but to leave this country and lost all of the friends, those new connections you made in this new place. Because when you move abroad, every part of your life is interconnected. And then the last one is those quiet goodbyes. This is when you realize a lot of those old relationships and friendships cannot survive the distance. Over time, you just grow apart. And these goodbyes don't come with big arguments. Sometimes you still think about them even after years of no contact. A lot of times people come into our life just for a season. They help you to heal, to grow, and once that purpose is fulfilled, you have no choice but to release them and let them go. And oftentimes when you are carrying this grief, it makes it a lot harder to build new connections in your new city. Because whenever you're navigating a relocation, you're not just starting from zero, you're starting from loss. And a lot of people underestimate how heavy this emotional load is when you're grieving. Even if you push yourself to go out, meet new people, go to more networking events, but part of you still feel guarded because grief stops you from opening your heart. Part of you is trying to protect you from disappointment, and that is why you tend to keep the conversation at the surface. But real connection requires vulnerability, openness, and emotional availability. So you must learn how to move through this grief in order to make space for new connections to flow into your life. And for a long time, I thought in order to move through this grief, I need to say goodbye to those people who left my life. Until at some point of this journey, I've realized that the ultimate goodbye I need to say is not to those other people. It is to myself, to that old version of me that's still trying to hold on to the safety, support, love other people once provided. Because when you're grieving, what you're really missing is not just the other person. What you're missing is the safety and the security that person once provided you. And the good news is that that felt sense of safety and love doesn't always have to be tied to external surroundings or other people. You have the power to create that felt sense of safety within you. Because so often when we are moving abroad, we try to build a home in our external surroundings or other people. And what most people don't realize is that when you build a home in other people, you also give them the power to make you feel homeless. Maybe one day your job ended, visa expired, friendship faded, the country you lived no longer makes you feel safe, and that can make you feel really empty and rootless. That emptiness doesn't mean you have nothing within you. It simply means you have been building the home in the wrong place. The real work of belonging starts when you begin to build that home within you. And this isn't just a logical idea or a concept, it's a felt sense of home in your body, and every one of you has that within you. And so often we don't feel that it's because we have other unprocessed emotions. Maybe it's a trauma from your past that are blocking us from accessing that deeper place of peace and love. So this work is all about allowing yourself to process, to release, to let go, so that you can return to your center, come back to that place of peace, love, and connection within you. And the beautiful thing about that is when good things happen, you surround yourself with your loved ones, you cherish those good moments. And even if when things are going downhill, someone has to leave one day, you can accept that and let it go, because you know that you can always come home to yourself, return to your center, finding that place of peace and love within. And so this is a framework I developed that can help you process your emotions so that you can come back to that place of peace and clarity within you. This is called the FEEL framework, FEEL. So the F stands for find. This means find that emotion, that sensation in your body. Whenever you experience an unpleasant emotion, maybe it's an anxiety, stress, really ask yourself, where do you feel that in your body? Maybe it's a tightness in your chest. Maybe it's some heaviness in your heart. We want to find that sensation and just simply be with that, acknowledge that. And the second step, E, means express. This means allowing yourself to name that emotion, name that sensation. Because when the cognitive part of your brain begin to acknowledge your emotions, it secretes soothing neurotransmitters that can calm down your downstairs brain, which is responsible for emotional regulation. So you basically change your body's chemistry by naming your emotions. And then the third step is embrace. This means allowing yourself to feel all the way through, because so often when we experience those unpleasant emotions, part of you will always try to override it. Maybe you're trying to control your external environment, other people, so that you can feel better. And sometimes we avoid it, pretending everything was okay. And there are also times we suppress it, like thinking it all the way down. So when you're feeling those unpleasant emotions, just noticing there is a part of you that's trying to resist, but you're not acting on it, because whatever you resist persists. The work we're doing here is how can we meet life right here. When a trigger arises, when you feel this grief, this loneliness, instead of running away from them, facing them directly, being present with them, because when you begin to meet those emotions with love, with presence, they will begin to soften, and you will be surprised at how quickly you can move through those emotions, because that's all your physical body is trying to do. It's always trying to heal, trying to evolve. You just need to allow it and accept it, because when you accept it, you're free of it. And then the last step is let it move. This means allowing yourself to move through those emotions, allowing them to release, do whatever you need to do somatically to get that energy out of your system. Maybe it's through breathing, sounding, dancing, shaking, typing. When you get triggered, don't make it about the external world or other people. All you need is to simply allow yourself to complete that process of activation. And once you allow that energy to get out of your system, you will come back to a place of regulation and clarity. And from that place, you will have a clear mind, open heart, turn on intuition. Your behaviors are going to be so much more productive and efficient. And once you allow yourself to fully process and release those emotions, you will begin to connect to that deeper place of wisdom within you, because grief is one of the most powerful teachers we can ever have. It teaches us to release, to let go, to offer that love and compassion to ourselves. And whenever you're feeling this grief, ask yourself this question: do you believe in life or do you believe in loss? Believing in life means you trust the natural rhythm of life with its all constant change. You believe in transformation, change, and purpose. Believing in loss means you're so fixated on the pain, on what was lost, and that is probably the reason why you are feeling stuck, because you are so afraid of to let go of things or people that no longer serve you. But believing in life means it's okay to release, it's okay to let go, it's okay to trust where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. So after I left Hong Kong and when I was in Vancouver, I was really disappointed that things didn't go the way as I wanted. But after 4 years of inner work, I've experienced the deepest inner transformation, and eventually it manifested in my external life. I moved to Toronto and now I'm in New York. This is something I never imagined because I'm originally from a really small town in China. Growing up, I thought the best life I could hope for was probably one in Shanghai or Hong Kong. But after going through those major life transitions and allowing myself to release those conditionings, find my true self, life opens up in a way that I can never imagine. So this is what happens when you give yourself the permission to surrender, to let go. Life opens up in a way that you can never imagine. I'm a relocation coach and somatic practitioner, helping people navigate the emotional layer of relocation so that you can feel at peace and at home no matter where life is taking you. If you're looking to explore more about this journey, download the free ebook on my website, link in my bio, and follow for more.